everyone. Delighted to have you on today's webinar. I'm Dannika Warburton. I'm the Director of Investability and I manage the investor relations for Mali Lithium. Mali Lithium is soon to be renamed Firefinch after the national bird of Mali and has world-class gold and lithium assets in Mali. Today, the company is going to focus on the recently announced Morila gold acquisition. However, we understand that the Goulamina lithium project is of interest to a lot of our attendees, and so we will address this in the Q&A at the very end. If you would like to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. We will unmute you and you can ask your question to Alistair at the end of the presentation. Alternatively, you can type your question into the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom of your screen as well, at any time during the presentation. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Alistair Cowden, Executive Chairman of Mali Lithium, for today's presentation.
Thank you everyone for coming along. Dannika told me there are 206 people online, which is very nice, very pleasing, and certainly a lot more interest in the company than a little while ago. So what I want to do today is just briefly run through where we're at with the Morila transaction. And at the end of that presentation, I'll say a few things about Goulamina and where we're at. I know there's a lot of interest in it. I can't answer everything, but I'll do my best. But Dannika, I need to share screen, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, here we go. Now, is everyone seeing that, Dannika? Is that working?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, so here we are. There's a wonderful picture there of the Morila plant. You can see how big it is. This is a 4.5 million ton a year plant. And what we're going to do is we're going to fire it up and get it going like it used to be in its prime 10 years ago. How do we? Okay, we won't worry about that. So basically what we've acquired from Barrick and AngloGold is a fantastic opportunity. Now, many people have asked me about why sell it to us. My best answer is, why did they sell the super pit? I mean, this is not the super pit. Big companies divest assets. They've got limited attention span and number of assets. This was owned 40-40 by AngloGold and Barrick. And so 40%, even if we get the up to very large production for us, is not meaningful for them. So, and we managed to get it for a very, very good price, probably around 27 million US. So what we've got is we've got something that's producing gold now. So on the 23rd, at the end of the month, when we settle the transaction, we'll be a gold producer. It's a fantastic thing to happen. And as you can see from the plant and the amount of drilling we're inheriting a workforce, we're leveraging off sunk capital. This is not like other West African developments, which are wonderful, and I've been shareholders of them, where people drill something out and then they have to go and raise money, and the company is encumbered by large amounts of debt or very large capital raisings to get into production. This gives us immediate cash flow and gets us going straight away. Now, the other thing I want to show you is why I'm a geologist. I love rocks, I love mines, and I've been involved in some big gold deposits, Kanana Bell, Sunrise in the early days. And this is a beast. It's a big, big, big mine, and it's going to get bigger. We've already got 1.3 million ounces, and we're going to grow that. The first step of that growth is through the tailings that we have, but we'll bring in little satellite pits, which I'll show you later. They've been mined before, and they will allow us to lift production and provide a bridge to bringing in that big pit that you can see in the bottom left, right there, that's filled with water. So the exploration potential as well, we consolidate existing Mali lithium ground with Morila ground to create nearly 700 square kilometers of ground. And frankly, there's been really no meaningful work for more than a decade. And the other thing is, should shareholders approve the transaction and the acquisition, we'll have somewhere up to 26 million of working capital plus the cash flow from the tailings and the satellite pits as well. So next. There we go. So where we are, I won't spend too much time on this. Most of you would be familiar that West Africa has a fantastic growing gold industry. Morila was one of the first 20 years ago. It was originally BHP, then Randgold, now Barrick. But some of those mines are fantastic, and some of you have probably been shareholders in the companies associated with those mines. Mali is a mature mining destination. Now, one of the things I do want to address is the political situation in Mali. Now, many people talk about sovereign risk, and it's really interesting. What we've just had is a practical example in sovereign risk in Mali. We had a military coup. Now, while it's not something you condone, we now have an appointed civilian government. Well, all the ministers have just been appointed. But basically, when talking to mine manager at Morila, he said, what coup? Made no difference to the mining operations. So sovereign risk in a business is all about business continuity, and it had no impact. So I think that's something worth bearing in mind. Just about the worst thing possible happened, and nothing happened. So let's move on. We'll look at the tailings dam, and I just love this. Some of you have been around for a while may have been familiar with things like this at Caltails, just outside Kalgoorlie. What the guys are doing here is they're using big hydraulic cannons to mine and slurry up the tailings, take them to the plant and retreat them, and that's what they're producing gold at, depending on grade and throughput. It's been between 50 and 60,000 ounces annual rate of production. And we started to look at ways in which we might extend the life of that tailings operation. Currently, it's due to finish in May. We would slow it down if we brought in satellite pits at the same time, but we may also get more tons out of that tailings dam. We're doing some stuff now with the guys on site to how we might look at that. But here's the prize. There's the Morila plant from the air. So this, as I said earlier, this is a major strategic advantage. It's a big plant, 4.5 million ton a year. It needs love and attention. We've been through it. And the only area where there's any issue is the power station. The power station is 20 years old. Some of you may have seen Resolute had a similar power station at Sayama, 200 kilometers away. I've just done a deal with an independent power provider to replace that power plant. We'll probably do something the same and maybe even have a temporary power solution. But other than that, it's really relatively minor issues with the plant. And if you're worried about the age of the plant and so forth, I just say when I first arrived in this wonderful country out in the goldfields 40 years ago, they were building Paddington, New Celebration, 3 Mile Hill and Kambalda gold plants. They're all still going today. And again, these little images just give you a feeling for the things that we have there. It's a huge amount of infrastructure. You can see the power station bottom left, very large, fuel tanks, everything's there. 400 people there today making this thing work and produce gold bars. This is not a startup. It's an ongoing operation. It has everything you would expect of a remote mine site. People, security, financial staff, HR, all those things are there. The two things that are missing are mining and geology, because they haven't been mining for 10 years. They've only been treating stockpiles and tailings, and we're building those teams now, and hopefully I'll be able to talk to you in the next few weeks about the success we hopefully will be having and bringing some people on board. Now if we come to one of my favorite slides. So this is a cross section through the big Morila pit. You can see there's a wee bit of water in it. That's just pumping. It'll be to get to the first levels for mining and drilling will take about 3 or 4 months, and about the same in dollars to achieve. But you can see in there, Morila the gorilla, the purple high grade, steeply dipping on the right, ore body that drove the pit. And its second year of production, it did more than 1 million ounces. A made of mine was there in the early days. It was head grade 1 week was 80 grams. This was a fantastic mine, and it's something we mustn't lose sight of. But what you can see here is outside the pit, there's been a lot of drilling. And we put this is an old AngloGold model from 2008. We're currently doing a more geologically driven one. But you can see there's a conservative pit. It's a $12.50 US an ounce pit. That's $700 an ounce or so less than today's price. And within that pit, there was 1.3 million ounces fell in that pit. We're currently redoing all that in a much more sophisticated way from first principles, and we'll be coming back to you with all that information when it's completed. But the cross section's a kilometer across. This is a big ore body. Now, the satellite pits you can see there, they're quite important. I call them a bridge to the main Morila pit. We've got the tailings. We bring in these satellite pits. There's 3 that have already been mined. They did over 100,000 ounces. 2 of those were actually found by this company and sold to Randgold in the past. You can see they're quite small. We're working on them right now. We've got preliminary resource estimates, which we'll pull together and release shortly. We're doing mine designs, and we can have equipment back in there very quickly. There's haul roads there. There's relatively little to do to get them back in production and supplement that tailings production. It'll displace tailings, therefore extending the life and lift the grade as well compared to the very low grade tailings. We're also going to look at the Coating deposit, something that we found on adjacent ground, and we'll be drilling that very, very soon. Some of you may have seen an update this morning. Unfortunately, it's been a wee bitty wet in Mali this year. It's been a very big wet season. So we'd hope to be there about now, but it might be a few weeks yet before it dries out because Coating's in a drainage. But anyway, we'll be into it very, very soon, and there'll be equipment in those pits very soon. The amount of water in the bottom is really quite trivial to pump out. But here we go. Here's the big beast, Morila the gorilla. And you can see the pit there, the waste dumps in the background, and the big pit, 1.6, I think, by 700 meters across. It's big, but there's been nothing done here since about meaningful since probably 2008, really. And that is the big opportunity for us. And this is a slide that I love. Again, a kilometer across cross-section. You can see here to the left, the first benches that will be the first mining in the Morila pit probably could be about a year from now, maybe a bit earlier. We'll see what the plan looks like. And a bucket load of intersections just below the pit floor and places on the pit floor. So I think there'll be ore exposed once we get the first mining benches there. But if you look inside the pit, look at that drill hole, those drill holes in off to the right, 7 inside the pit and mined. What's that? I need my glasses. 84, isn't it? At 11 grams. I'd suggest you if we were a junior company and drilled that hole tomorrow, we'd be a $100 million company overnight. But look at the intersections off to the right that are outside of the pit. This is the high-grade extensions of the Morila pit. They're a bit noisy. They're not continuous, but that's the limit of the drilling, chasing Morila the gorilla. 56 meters at 5 grams and 20 at 4.5. Not bad. We know this is a big high-grade mine in the past, but the geology is hard. I'm a geologist originally. I think I'm pretty clever. When I first went and looked at the drill core, I walked past the intersection in the drill hole. I couldn't see it. These are subtle deposits. A lot of smart people have looked at them, but the advantage we have is a gold price. It enables us to look at this in a different way. Lower cutoffs allow continuity and much more drilling. We're going to throw a lot of drilling at this over the next few years. We're already between resources and past production at something like 8.5 million ounces. This will kill 2 million ounces, 10 million ounces. It's really, really exciting. To me, this is the main game, is the Morila pit. And where does it go? It reminds me of Kambalda, of St. Ives, they call it now, in the early days, these curved ramps and steep bits, and it looks really, really good. Then we come to regional exploration, and in common with much of the world, Western Australia has been way ahead of everyone else in exploring in deeply weathered terrains. We started in the late 80s, 90s, understanding that, and the rest of the world took a long time. And frankly, the guys here have used a lot of inappropriate techniques for deep weathering. There's a lot of targets that have only partially followed up. There's certainly going to be an awful lot more satellite pits. Whether there's another big one there, well, time will tell. But we'll be looking very hard at that 700 square kilometers around the mine, and we'll see what we get. You can see there on the left the geology office at Morila, and when we went in there, there was the metaphorical inch of dust on in the bookshelves. There's been no geology team there for a long, long time. That's an opportunity, huge opportunity. So I'll just wrap up with what the company's about. I'm keeping it relatively brief, but there's a lot of information on the web. The first thing we've got to do is we're working very, very hard. There's a lot to be done to hand over this asset from Barrick to ourselves. There were only 4 or 5 people in Perth office. and we're going to be owning an operation with 400 people. We're mindful that not to be flippant about that, but we're working very hard to make sure that that's as smooth as possible. And the first part of that is getting the capital raising completed, subject to shareholder approval, and the deal completed. We're well on the way on resource and reserve estimates. We're using world-class consultants and our own people for Morila itself, the tailings, the satellite pits, and some underground potential material that I've not really talked about or put in any releases so far. We're doing to do some work on that and talk about that. From that will flow a proper mine plan. From that, you'll get a mine schedule, costs, any capital required, and production schedule, and you'll be able to see what this thing might do. And the other thing we're doing, coating is on exploration tenure. We're now doing the work necessary to get that to become a mining license and hopefully feed Morila within the year, because it's shallow, it's oxide, it's not high grade, but it's oxide, and it's very, very good stuff to get in the plant. But then where does that take us to? First thing, we've got to make sure that tailings production continues. We've got to start dewatering Morila. The tailings dam's now configured where they're mining it and depositing it in a pit. We've got to change all that around where it's a tailings dam again. We manage the water in a different way. And the other task I mentioned is refurbishing the power station and a lot of smaller ones. Then we've got to start mining the satellite pits, hopefully early next year, blend them with the tailings, and that immediately increases mine life and will lift the annual throughput in terms of ounces. And full production. Once we get Morila up and running, 4.5 million ton a year plant filled with hard rock ore, then we're going to have a production profile that looks more like a mid-tier than what we are today, and that is quite a prize. And the other thing that we'll be doing is the near mine and regional exploration. So that's Morila, but what I'll do before we take questions, and there are quite a lot of questions on Goulamina, and I'll try and address them briefly because we may not get to them in the Q&A. So Goulamina, so the first thing is the DFS is late. There's a very good reason. We had something better to do. I was never able to say that bluntly when we were negotiating with Barrick and doing our due diligence. But frankly, we were a small company, we had no money, and there's a limit to what you can do. And this was much more important. It transforms the company. Goulamina's study is now in the final stages of write-up. We're just getting sign-off on reserves, and I'm hopeful that might be out within a week or so. We're very close to completing. It's, as I said, there are just other things to do. I was asked questions on why didn't we sell Morila to fund acquiring, sell Goulamina to acquire Morila. Well, it's just not that easy. By the time we knew that we had it, we're only going to know on the 23rd of October that the shareholders have approved us of getting there. So it just doesn't work in order. I've also been asked about spin-out, and I don't think a lot of shareholders understand what spin-out involves. A scheme of arrangement costs $500,000 and takes 5 months, and then you've got to have a plan. So a lot of these things, they're not being stupid. It's just that they're not easy to do in a tiny little company such as we were. In terms of our plan, I've always had the view with Goulamina that we're being premature. Until we have a high quality technical study, the PFS that announced raised lots of issues. They're all being addressed. We're going to come out with a high quality study that third parties can look at. We also, during the last year, we acquired our mining permits. So the asset is now will now be in a position where it can move ahead. Now, what is the path forward for it? Well, there are many things possible. And we can go through those, but I won't. But all I'll say is the one thing we're guided by is shareholder value. Now, if you think back to where the company was 6 or 7 months ago, it was a $15 million company with no money in the bank. It was going to have this big lithium project. What's it going to do? I tell you what it's going to do. It's going to get taken to the cleaners if it tried to do something with Goulamina. Now we're going to be in a position of strength. We can be patient and we can extract the best value we can for Goulamina. Please be assured it's not forgotten. I understand the value of it, and we will extract that value as best we can. So I might leave that there, and maybe Dannika, we can go to Q&A.
Thanks, Alistair. That was great. So we'll open up now to the Q&A, and we've actually got a question here from Stuart Foster. Stuart, please ask your question.
Yeah, hi, thanks very much. I just wanted to know, on the plant, can you just give us an update? You talked about the plant being, well maintained, but can you just give us a bit more of a sense as to what work has been done on the plant in terms of upgrades and maintenance, etc.? Yeah. I'm assuming because it was owned by, one of the big houses that, they have maintained it in a pretty good stead. But given they were looking to sell it, I'm just sort of conscious of how good it may be.
Thanks, Stuart, and nice to chat again. The plant, I guess the assurance that I give is producing gold today. And as you said, Barrick and AngloGold are not amateurs. But what we do know is that there's been a lack of preventative maintenance because they've been on a closure path for some time. The principal area where that is, so we've been through the plant, and as I mentioned, the principal area of concern is the power station. Two solutions there. One is longer term, which will probably be an independent power provider doing over-the-fence power. But in the short term, it'll be to supplement the generating capacity and allow the mill and the crushers, which are not working now, and we need to have work, we supplement, give the power for them. We'll probably use some temporary power solution in conjunction with that. The rest of the issues around the plant are really quite trivial. There are things like bits of structural steel that are a little bit tired, or a coat of paint, or things that the laboratory has, really could do with a new AA machine. They're really quite small. So the plant, if you like, is the least of our worries. I think, getting mining re-established is a much bigger task, because we've got a full plant team there, a bunch of guys who love this plant. Some of them have been there for 20 years and they know everything that needs to be done. Probably one other issue is that the mill has been sitting on its bearings for too long. So when we get control, we'll be getting probably the vendor team in to have a look at that and just see whether we need to refurbish there. But none of these things are a big deal. So there's nothing like a major. I don't have a feeling for capital yet, and I don't want to speculate in a forum like this, but we're getting numbers coming in.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Alistair.
Thanks, Stuart.
So next we've got a question from Curtis Abbott. Curtis, please ask your question.
G'day, Alistair. My question is in regards to whether or not the board or the company is aware of any near assets within trucking distance that it could potentially acquire. Anything that's relatively feasible would have a huge IR and PV effect, considering that we own the plant. Has any work been put or any thought been put into anything around there, considering Mali assets are on the cheap?
Well, the first thing is I don't think assets in Mali are cheap. The people are pretty wise there. There's a whole bunch of quite nimble Mali entrepreneurs who are in there. In terms of assets, the first thing is that when we get this thing bedded down, I'm going to do a more strategic view of regional exploration. So. And regional opportunity. We're unaware of any deposits that can be mined. And what you've always got to remember is when there's an asset nearby, so I think this thing is going to have a 10-year plus life. So if there's an opportunity nearby, it has to be better, significantly better, and that probably means grade, than what we have in front of us that's 100% owned and is essentially you don't have to pay for. So that'll be the guiding light. We've been approached by numerous tenement holders in the area, but my preference is, so the plant's not going away, we're not going away. I prefer to take a more strategic view. The view that we have of exploration and leveraging the knowledge that we have in 6 to 12 months' time is going to be much, much further ahead than where we are today. However, I can't help myself if there's something that's looks too good to let miss. Of course, we'll grab it. But really, it's going to be a more strategic view with the long term. This is moving to, this company has to develop a meaningful strategic plan that goes out 10 years because it's going to have that kind of asset. But yes, we're not unaware of earlier stage anomalies around us, but none that are compelling. We've got to act today. Thanks,
mate.
Perfect. So we might actually stop sharing the screen now, Alistair, during this Q&A.
Okay. I beg your pardon. I'm not that technologically literate, so how's that?
Not at all. Perfect. So we've actually got a couple of questions that were emailed through, and there's a few in the Q&A as well, which we'll try to get to. One here from Nick Carter around the risks. He's asked, what do you see as the key risks of the transaction and how will these be managed?
I guess transaction. So I'm not quite sure what Nick means, but transaction risk, I think, is completion risk of this transaction with Barrick and AngloGold. I mean, nothing's done until it's done, but there were two conditions. One was financing and one was no government objection. And I think I addressed both of those in the update this morning to ASX. But basically, shareholders approved the capital raising. That financing condition is gone. No government objection. We've been engaged with government such as it's been during this coup, as have Barrick, and to date there's been no objection. So the risks of completion look to be low, but as many of you know, like buying a house or whatever, until it's done, it's not done. So in terms of risks around where we're moving to, so the question you probably should ask me, what keeps me awake at night, and it's people. COVID has had an impact. Zoom's fine like this, but I would have preferred if I was doing this from the boardroom at Morila. We've met the people when we were doing a due diligence just before the world shut down, but we don't know them well. And there's no geology team there. There's no mining team there. We're very active and made a lot of progress there. But to me, the thing that keeps me awake, the biggest risk is execution risk and turning this company from a two-bit junior into a real miner. And there's lots involved in that across the company: compliance, governance, operations, insurance, you name it. There's a lot to do. I can only assure you I've done something like this once before, taken Altona from 4 or 5 people to 300-400 employees in Finland. And because of that, that's why it keeps me awake at night. It's not easy, but be assured that we're working on it and we understand those risks.
Great. So you've actually touched on this. It sort of speaks to the risk as well about the situation in Mali in the presentation. We've got a question here from Eric Murphy, who's asked, can you speak to the geopolitical risk, if any?
Yeah, well, as I said in the presentation, I think we went through the test. I think with a newly appointed government, actually, what I might do is I'm loath in any kind of public forum to express an opinion about Mali and politics. I think it's probably inappropriate. But other than to say there's been a new government appointed, the people seem to be all quite competent, and we are very hopeful that Mali will return to representative democracy soon, and that the impact in the business of this has been low. But I don't think I'll comment on Mali and politics. That's for Malians, I think.
Okay, we've got a question here around the production targets. So once the Morila transaction has settled, how many ounces of gold can we expect to produce, and what would be the annual target amount?
What a great question. And answering that question with what I think today, with what's in the public domain, will send me to ASX prison. Because we're not allowed to tell investors what they want to know. So if you've got a problem, talk to ASX. All I'd suggest is, so we'll be doing all the work necessary to be able to publish that with all the appropriate technical backup, JOC compliance, and so forth. But I just offer this to you, and it's simple mathematics. The plant is capable of 4.5 million tons a year. The resource that fell within the pit is 1.3 grams. There are 31.1 ounces, grams in an ounce. There's some simple mathematics you can do there.
Okay, great.
It's not a small number.
Well answered, that one. Very diplomatic. So we've got a couple of questions on the plant now, which we'll move to. Giuseppe has asked about the condition of the plant. So we'll maybe. I think
we answered that when I spoke to Stuart. So I think that's pretty much done. as I said, I think the plant is the least of our worries, and there are many examples around the world of plants of this age or double the age still working. And the one thing that's had some love is that team have been there for 20 years, and they're largely the processing team that's still in place.
Okay. Jose's asked whether the Morila plant has the capacity to process concentrate from other mines, charging a refining fee.
Well, it's a carbon and leach plant, so it really it processes gold ore. Most gold mines don't produce a concentrate; they produce gold bars, or you can produce a sort of gold concentrate. But if you get that far, every plant has the ability to turn it into gold bars. So probably more relevant is the plant, as Curtis asked. One day you'll be looking, such as I mentioned, Paddington, it probably doesn't have much of its own ore anymore and is treating third-party ore it's purchased or has deals with. But that's hopefully more than a decade away for us.
Okay, great. Andrew Evans has asked, after the tailings have been processed and the 17 million has been made, will there be any further need for capital raising?
The financial plan is still evolving, but so essentially you look at the cash flow, and there'll be cash flow from the tailings as well. So there'll be more than that 17 million gold price willing there, and we will apply that cash flow. No money will be leaving Mali. It'll be all staying there to get invested into the business and grow the business. There'll be things to spend money on. The capital need will become clear from the mine plan design schedule that we're going to need. It'll be around the power station, dewatering the pit, reconfiguring the tailings dam, and obviously once we're back into Morila pit, we'll need to push back and maybe start moving some of the waste dumps. What we will almost certainly do is we've had open discussions with some parties, is look to Morila SA, the entity in Morila, getting itself a sensible working capital facility such that it has the capacity to meet any of those needs. And once we have the clear understanding of the financial model going forward in the next month or so, we'll be engaging with people more meaningfully and put that in place. Again, I'll go back to my experience that I mentioned, the Altona, which I ran before in Finland. We did a similar thing to this. We did essentially a 1-for-1 issue where we doubled the number of shares in issue. We got some debt, 25 million US. We built a mine, we ran it, it outperformed, and we sold it, and everyone made an awful lot of money. And we never issued another share. So I am a shareholder, and I'm going to be a larger shareholder if shareholders approve me participating in the placement. I have no interest in more dilution unless it's for a very, very good reason, like we're going to make more money.
Fantastic. So we're probably going to wrap up now. There's a lot more questions, but I guess we could finish on this one, which is from Joseph, and he asks about the vision, the company's vision. Will it be a junior to mid-tier miner targeting 130 to 200 ounces, or will it be a bigger producer in West Africa? So I know you can't speak to the sort of production targets, but where do you see Morila, the gorilla, in the future?
Well, I'm just glad that someone out there can do maths. That's great. So what I see here is so Morila itself, hopefully you'll get that long life. But I have a very simple view, particularly in gold. Single mine companies are not much fun. You've got no spread of your risk, and where do you go? So there's the certainty is once we're established, we're going to buy another asset, in whatever form that might mean, or we're going to be bought and become part of another company. I think, I think what Bill Beament has done, and I can remember being at a presentation in New York with Bill when all he had was the Paulson's mine and I had the mine in Finland. I have to say that Bill and Northern Star have way outperformed what I've done. But what he did is he did it through prudent, sensible acquisition, and he did it through acquisitions like this. He bought in weakness. He also bought a company I chaired about a year ago, Echo Resources. I think M&A, there's too much ego involved in M&A, and it should always be driven by value and shareholder value. Of course, I want to grow the company. Of course, I want to make it bigger and better. But one main reason being it's more fun.
Well, we've got a few more minutes. So there's another question here from Drennan. We'll take his as the last question. If anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to email me directly. My details are on the bottom of all the ASX announcements, and we will answer every one of them individually. But Drennan, please feel free to ask your question.
Hi, Alistair. Drennan here. Thanks for your time today and all the recent engagement with shareholders through various forums. It is much appreciated. And yeah, well done again from all shareholders and the team for this massive transaction. I can't imagine how much work it would have been getting this over the line with Barrick and AngloGold. So thanks very much. My question is, what are the near-term catalysts for the share price in your view? I'm quite stunned, to be honest, that even fully diluted, that we are a $130 million company at 16 cents. I just wanted to get your perspective.
Well, thanks for that, Drennan, and thanks for the words that I'm getting old, and I found closing this transaction, the capital raising, quite hard work. Actually, it was haven't done that for a while, but and there was a lot of people here who put in effort, and they were all on reduced salaries and so forth as well, and some of them didn't take any money out of the company for a while. So on your behalf, I'll accept I'll pass on the thanks to them. But in terms of the share price, I think I've been reflecting on that because I can see the value in its multiples of today's price. I think one of the things is that these kind of things usually creep up in people. So someone goes and they drill a hole, and then they drill another hole, and then people start speculating about it, and then all the brokers compete to see who's going to be the guy who gets the capital raising. So you find lots of broker coverage and so forth. This came out of the blue. So I think that's the first thing. It came out of the blue, and a lot of people didn't even know what Mali Lithium and a gold project. They just had no idea. So I think the surprise factor is one reason why we're there, and also the raising is large, and there's indigestion associated with that. In terms of catalysts, I think there's quite a lot. Getting the raising out of the way is the first. And I think as soon as that raising's done, this is why I urge anyone who's in the share purchase plan, take it, because you're never going to see this price again. It's as soon as people stop playing the arbitrage game and the 16-cent cap is gone, which is only a few weeks away, that price will be gone. But once that indigestion's out of the way, we'll be going out in very short order. Resources, they're going to be bigger. Believe me, they're going to be bigger. Well, I haven't seen the latest Morila model, but I'm really excited to do that. They're going to be bigger. Then there's going to be reserves. Then people are going to see there'll be visibility on production profile and how it's going to grow. And then there'll be simple things like your first quarterly report actually says you made money. We're privy to the reports from the mine now. It's making money. So I think that path, and then we're also will be drill. And unfortunately, we've got a whole bunch of really, boring stuff doing the infill and extension and confirmatory things around the satellite pits because they're feeding the mill ASAP. We've got to do those first, but as soon as possible, I want to get into Morila and have a bit of fun because I think so. If we can demonstrate, so I think the process of demonstrating we are a gold producer, we're a growing gold producer. I think the other thing is I start to tell people about the team we're assembling, and it's credible that we've got the capacity to do this. I think all those things people start to realize, and then when it's understood that you're going the comparison to similar production profiles that were way off. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff there. Plus, with Dannika's help, who's just the best investor relations person I've come across in 30 years of running companies, I'm sure we'll get the message across really well.
Great. Thanks, Alistair, and thanks, Dannika, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words, Alistair. That concludes the webinar for today. As I said before, if you've got any more questions, please feel free to email me and we'll get back to every one of them. The replay will also be available as soon as possible. We'll have it emailed to you as soon as it's done, probably Friday. So again, thanks for joining us today and have a fantastic rest of your day.